We gratefully honor the Coast Salish people for their land stewardship and commit to continuing to grow our relationships with them and the lands we now live on. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ben. So if you're on our mailing list, you would have gotten the minutes of the last meeting from March 21st. And I'm going to ask if there are any corrections to the minutes that have been sent to everybody. Hearing none, I mark those as approved. And we introduce our guests that we have that are from off island. And this evening, we have Anjali Dodge. She's the Economic Alliance Program Manager of King County, and Anjali is with us on Zoom. And there she is, over there.
Hi, everyone.
If you unmute yourself, Anjali, and say hello.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Uh-oh, we
Can you
can't
hear?
hear you, so I don't think it's...
She's okay. I think it's just our audio.
There were some folks
Okay.
talking earlier. I wonder if they can hear us in
Okay,
general.
never mind, let's...
Anjali, I can hear you on
No, we're
Zoom.
okay.
I don't know if they
I
can
had
hear
the
you
wrong-
in the room.
There we go.
Could you try
Yeah.
again, Anjali?
Yes.
we can
Hello,
hear you
everyone.
now.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you just fine. I had the
Oh,
wrong
lovely.
setting on my laptop, but we're all good now.
Wonderful. Glad y'all can hear me. I was just saying thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be here. Yeah. Did you want me to do introductions and start in now,
Nope.
Diane? Or... Okay,
No,
great.
no, just say hello. We'll get you going later.
Perfect. Good to
Okay.
meet everyone.
We also have this evening with us Bong Sto Domingo, King County Department of Local Services. Raise your hand, Bong. There's Bong. And we also, and David, you're going to need a microphone. We also have David Daw, also from King County. There we go. And give a pitch.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Daw. I'm the External Relations Manager for the Department of Local Services. What that means is I oversee all of the external programs for the Department of Local Services, which include economic development, the Community Service Area Program, which Bong is a part of, the Conservation Corps, so the group that you see cleaning up outside and doing the garbage cans, and a variety of other little programs, the community van as well. So glad to be here. I want to put a quick pitch out for our service hours. So Bong is here Tuesdays? Yeah. Tuesdays. And so if you need any information about anything we do at King County, Bong is here and he can help you navigate King County. Roads, permitting, pet licensing. He's also a notary. So we do free notary as well on Tuesdays. But so if you think you have a question about anything about government, I have cards and I can get a hold of him for you. So yeah, so please, it's important that we use the service that he's there, so we have a reason to keep him coming out to Island. So we want people to stop by and say hi, and you can bring him cookies or coffee or whatever. But he's a great resource, and so it's at the Chamber building. So we have an office there that we lease, and yeah, so we have him there every Tuesday. So thanks.
Thanks, David. I hope that you're going to be a little bit busier now, Bong. Okay, is there anyone else that isn't from the island that is a guest this evening that hasn't been recognized? Okay, I guess we'll keap going then. Very good.
Diane, Karen
Yes.
Brubeck. I'm just wanted to let you know that I'm online.
Oh, gosh,
and
yes.
I'm in transit, so I am just listening in right now.
Okay, Karen Brubeck is with Puget Sound Energy. So thank you very much for speaking up, Karen, so we know you're here. Appreciate that very much. Okay, so first thing now will be a VIGA update. Catherine Johnson. Oh, sorry. All right, I missed something. Sorry about that. Yes, I missed community happiness. Thank you very much for helping me. So Earth Day is April 22nd. But Saturday, April 20th, Dig Deep Gardens is hosting a celebration from 12:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And activities include a terrarium building workshop, poetry readings, and storytelling, music and song offered by Islander Michael Mead. Booths at the event will include the whole Vashon Project, the Vashon Heritage Museum, the Vashon Land Trust, Zero Waste Vashon, one of my favorites, the Septic Sisters, the Mukai Food Hub, the Vashon Nature Center, and more. So it's going to be a very big event. Moving into May, the Spring Vashon Island Visual Artists, VIVA, studio tour is happening both May 4th and 5th and May 11th to 12th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. both weekends. Thank you. So those are our community happenings and island celebrations. Now it's time for Catherine to speak, and she needs a mic, and I can bring up your slides.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And thanks for having us. To give us a quick little update on VIGA. I don't know how many people in this room are members of VIGA. Ron is, and you are? I don't know. Sorry, I don't know your names. Okay. Most people think of, when they hear about VIGA, they think about the Vashon Farmers Market, right? And so my main reason for being here tonight is to try to expand your understanding of all the many programs that VIGA is involved in and presenting. You can go ahead, Diane.
Okay.
You can just pass through the mission statement.
Okay.
That's good. For 25 years, we've been providing tangible support to island farmers, growers, and producers. VIGA is an all-volunteer membership organization, and the funding for our programs comes from membership dues, which are very expensive at $25 a year, grants, USDA, WSDA, KCD, and community business sponsorships, and finally, individual donors. And that allows us to do quite a bit. Okay? This logo we landed on in 2020 to try to really articulate what it is that VIGA does. And so if you just memorize those little words, grow, preserve, and share, it's circular in nature, and that's what we're about. Okay. So, growing. Our main goal is to increase local food production at all levels. We have educational videos that we do, community farm equipment library. We have a complete poultry processing, all the equipment you need to do that. We have third wheel implements for tractors, and it's a very informal system, but if you ever want to get your hands on something, you could at least see if we have it. We now have farming in community, which is an invitation to all new and young growers and farmers to come together, socialize, and focus on a particular farm visit and whatever that farm wants to present. So I know that they were at co-housing early in the month looking at the new compost system that co-housing has put in there. Then we have also a production committee, which is just a group of volunteers who are passionate about trying to increase local food production, and we're the ones who try to write the grants, who do the bulk orders of seed and feed, and just get the word out wherever we can to people to encourage them to grow food. Thank you, Diane.
Okay, next.
The preserve part of our program is to provide greater food security for the island, reduce food waste, create opportunity for value-added products. And this has been kind of one of the newer things that we have dedicated ourselves to. We had a partnership with the Vashon-Maury Food Bank for a gleaning program for the last 2 years. We had a hired gleaner. People could call and say they had excess produce that didn't move out of their farm stand over a weekend or in their fields, or just, I have too much fruit falling on my ground. Do you want it? Yes, we do want it. We have 2 commercial freeze dryers, and we process food and freeze dry it, and then it's redistributed, primarily through the Oasis program here. So when people are in crisis and they go to Oasis to navigate their way through that, oftentimes there's food for them right there that they can eat. They can just open the bag, and if you've ever had a freeze-dried dill pickle, it tastes like a pickled Cheeto. But if you add a little water to it, just a few drops, it'll go whoop and become a pickle again. It's amazing. We're hoping to really build this part of our programming this year. There's just so much we can do. Last year, we put away about 600 pounds of food, preserved about 600 pounds of food. And the year before that, it was closer to 1,000 pounds. But we actually had a paid person who was doing the gleaning. This year, we had to do it with volunteers. So there you go. Okay, Diane, you can move along. The share portion of the logo is to move local foods from fields to tables. And one of the ways we do that is through the Vashon Farmers Market, through the farm stands. Any VIGA member farm stand is on a printed map that John L. Scott does for us every year, so that when people come onto the island, they can get a farm stand map and find their way there. So that's one way we support that effort. VIGA members get a newsletter once a week from April through October that has, believe it or not, a farm stand update. So you don't have to drive all over the island to find that broccoli rapini that you so are craving. We have a number of members who simply are VIGA members because they love to get the newsletter and know what's where. And then the Food Access Partnership Program, which is a dedicated group of volunteers that raise money solely for this initiative. And they raise money, they turn it into alternative currency, like monopoly money. It's called farm bucks. And that can be spent at the farmer's market or at a farm stand. And those are distributed through Dove, through the Oasis program, at the public library, and Vashon households. Yeah, thank you. So last year, Food Access Partnership was able to raise $60,000 and redistribute that in terms of money to the community. So it's free for the taking. So anybody can ask for it at the library. Okay, and the reason I'm most excited to be here with you tonight is to talk a little bit about partnering with Friends of Mukai, who are restoring the historic barreling plant for agricultural purpose. They came to us last year in February, and we got in conversations and decided that what Vashon has always wanted and needed was a commercial kitchen, a local food hub where people could create those value-added products, where we could ramp up food preservation and storage, where there would be outside storage for farm equipment. So it would allow VIGA to have a more sustained operating venue, so to speak. The commercial kitchen has long been the holy grail on the island for most people. So for instance, we could get and people who had bees could come there and spin honey, things like that. Yeah, it's going to be wonderful. They have already shored up the outside, and they are now ready to go inside, and they've raised half of the money they need to do that. And so this year is the big fundraising push. They hope to break ground in February of 2025. So one more slide and then we're complete. That's the inside architectural drawing. You can see that there are spaces for 5 tenants. And they run around 8,000 square feet. And there are two businesses who have already signed letters of agreement to be there. VIGA will tenants, the commercial kitchen, and so there will be 2 tenant spaces left. So if you know of anybody who might want to have a business, food-oriented business in a location like that, please let them know about either VIGA or Friends of Mukai. So that's pretty much it. Just I wanted to let the community council know what we're up to, and also the folks on Zoom. Hello, everyone, and thanks for having us. Let us toot our horn a little bit.
You're very welcome. It's just amazing what VIGA does with a all-volunteer board. It's just, the programs just are phenomenal. So thank you, very, very hardworking folks at VIGA. And I'm very happy to be a member. Stalwart. Okay, next, the PSC Advisory Committee update and motions. And if you'd like to read anything here, Ben is going to, either way.
Introduce it real quick.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben. I'm on the board. So a little bit of background about the committee. Our committee chair, Jenny Bell, is here tonight. A bit about the committee and then some of the motions being presented here tonight. So as background, the PSE Advisory Committee was initiated as a response to Puget Sound Energy, upgrading activities on our island, impacting street frontage, trees, and vegetation that provide a buffer between private property and our roads. As part of the committee's activities, it's been confirmed that every pole on the island is currently on a clear zone program through King County Roads. King County Roads has this program, and all of the poles will be subject to it. That'll require infrastructure to be moved 10 feet back from the fog line, the edge of the road. In general, this move of infrastructure off the public right-of-way and onto private property it will involve moving them onto private property, and PSE's easement acquisition program is underway with utility easements involving rights to clear certain trees and vegetation. So this program has clear implications for street frontages and vegetation and property rights for the whole island. For those who've been attending, you've seen how the island has gotten started. I'll have questions in just a second. As a result of that, the committee has been very involved. The committee's held a number of meetings, and then the committee made some recommendations to the board, which the board discussed. And so tonight, I'd like to present on behalf of the board a couple of motions. There'll be some discussion about them and some explanation of them. And then, as with any motion, we don't vote on them tonight. We hold off for a month. But there will be some discussion tonight after I read the motions. Motion number one is that motion number one reads, the Vashon-Maury Community Council, the VMCC, calls upon PSE to restore property rights enshrined in statute into new easement agreements entered into with islanders, including updating the language of PSE's standard overhead easement clause 4 to mirror the language of RCW 64120351C in cases involving potential threats to PSE's systems by vegetation. RCW 64120351C requires that PSE attempts written notice by mail, ... indicating the intent to act or remove vegetation, and secures agreement from the affected property owner of record for the cutting, removing, and disposition of the vegetation. Right now, PSE's standard overhead easement clause number 4 eliminates the requirement that PSE obtain or even attempt to obtain a property owner's agreement. Out of respect for islanders' property rights, that should change. That's motion number one. Motion number 2 from the board reads, the Vashon-Maury Community Council, VMCC, calls upon King County, Casey, Department of Local Services, DLS, to present a community-wide public briefing summarizing the KC Roads Clear Zone Program. So those are the motions. I think I can, in advance of asking for a second, provide some explanation, or maybe we leave it to the
I
second.
think we should make a second the motion.
Okay.
Motions,
Those are
and then discuss them.
Those are the two board.
So looking for seconds for these motions.
Okay, I'll second.
Both of them?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so now we can open it up for discussion.
Sure, and if I may just have a moment to provide some explanation. So these are these board motions differ in a couple of ways from the motions that were presented to us by the committee. And while I am sure that's going to be the subject of some discussion, I feel like on behalf of the board, I should provide some explanation. So motion number 1 differs in that while the initial committee recommendation had a very strong recommendation, and one I think generally that the board was open to. There were some changes that need to be made to which statute it cited. The name of the document, for example, implicated the and some small grammatical changes. Overall, motion number one largely tracks with the motion received from the committee. Motion number two, as it exists, involves the first sentence of the proposed motion we received from the committee. During discussion amongst the board, we did not adopt a second sentence, which would have called upon King County to pause, at least temporarily, its implementation of the Clear Zone program on the island, pending additional input from the county. That was recommended by the committee, discussed among the board, and was not adopted in the board motion number two. So that's just sort of an overview of some of the discussion. Obviously, the committee's been doing some really diligent and good work, and so the board did thoroughly discuss the advice we received from the committee. But it does differ in those ways.
Okay, would anyone like to speak?
Just so the people online can hear you.
I'd like a definition of what you mentioned, the fog line, 10 feet beyond the fog line. Very few roads on this island have fog lines anyplace. It's mostly just gravel and the blacktop. So, and the roads, most of them are 60-foot right-of-ways. There's plenty of room in there without, you know, so 10 more feet for what? And I don't quite understand it.
Yeah, let's get Ed's bell. Generally, because I guess we're still discussing the board recommendation, in speaking to the committee and looking into the issue, fog line, as we're using it here, generally, in the absence of an actual painted line, is going to just refer to the exterior boundary of the road.
But the road's still a 60-foot right-of-way. And the roads are not that
No.
pavement. I'm on 216th, and there's plenty of room on the side.
Right,
So-
I
so-
think you were just
so-
asking
so
about
you-
the fog line
Well,
definition, right?
I'm interested to define the fog line, because if you're gonna ask me for an easement, I mean, you got plenty of room.
Right. To be clear, I'm not asking you for an easement, but to clarify what terms we're using, in the absence of a painted exterior line, I think generally this motion contemplates the exterior boundary of the road.
Would you
No,
like
we
me
need
to speak to that?
We need to,
Oh, sorry,
We
I
need to-
have to defer to the president here.
yeah. So I would like, Terry had your hand up first. Make it very quick, Terry, because I really want to give Jenny time to speak on this.
Terry, you are muted.
You're muted, Terry.
I understand that, okay.
Okay.
Uh,
Internet connection is unstable, so.
I
Okay,
think-
Terry can,
I think in terms of the second motion, I think it's important. I think you probably have a good idea of keeping that as a standalone motion, in that we really do need to understand what the county program is, what it entails, just as the last speaker was saying. You know, it's just why do they have to extend 10 feet away from the road? But I think that the second part of the motion is also very critical, because what we're talking about here is the county, I should say, PSE is intending a major investment in our infrastructure here on the island. And they had the choice of either going underground or going over. That choice on their own, independent of anything that our community has said. And therefore, I think the reason why we want the county to pause is because we as a community, I think, should have a right to decide whether we want underground wires, to find out what it would cost, what it would mean financially for us to do that, But I think that that choice, the kind of power system we have in the island, should be our choice. So I would propose a third motion saying that the county should pause this program until we talked with PSC and found out or contracted with them exactly what kind of system we as a community want to have out here. Then go ahead, because I think making a major investment like this without the community input is kind of like the rumble strips.
Thank you, Terry. We can't entertain a third motion right now because we're still discussing the first two motions, but we'll keep that one in mind later if we have time to address that one. Okay, so now, would you like to speak, Jenny?
Yes, but I'm about to propose additional motions as well. So I strongly support Terry's position, and I would second that motion, and that would take care of some of what I would be doing with additional motions as well. So
Let's first talk about these first two motions, and if there are any other questions or comments on the motions that are on the floor right now, and then we can move on to propose other motions. But these are the motions on the floor right now. And so you've spoken. Is there anyone? Okay. Felicity Harvey, you're next.
Oh, yes, I just wanted to know why you decided to change that second motion. Why did the council decide to change that?
Okay.
Thank you. So again, it was part of what was initially proposed to the board. There are a number of reasons. One is that the committee has not yet heard from anyone at King County. Two is that the King County Clear Zone program has been in place and implemented for decades across the county. And so it seemed premature in the face of a longstanding program to recommend that the county implement any kind of pause without first having talked to them. And second, doing some research into the matter, it does appear that at least there was a recommendation from the state Department of Transportation that in the absence of a consistently implemented clear zone program, the county may be subjected to liability. And on balance, again, in the absence of any discussion first with the county, certainly I think, I don't want to speak necessarily for every individual on the board, but I think it was generally the board's position that it was premature to make any recommendation like that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now, Jenny.
thank you very much. Thank you too, straight up, for the big effort that everybody's putting in, particularly the board. The biggest thing I want to speak to up front, which includes the reason why so much energy is being put in quite rapidly, is that the easement acquisition program being rolled out by PSC has been underway for 5 years. As per the Beachcomber article and the statements from PSC, there's 80 easements so far. So this is an active program, and every easement that is signed is, according to all the advices that I've received from multiple legal sources, incredibly difficult or impossible to move out of. There's so much information that's necessary for people to have before they sign these agreements. These are binding, they're in perpetuity, and they're over the street frontages of every place on Vashon that has a power pole. That's incredibly significant for our island. The way I like to describe it, so we have a little joke in the middle of all this, is it's like rumble strips on caffeine. Like if you thought rumble strips was a difficult outcome from King County roads with no consultation, this is another example of it, unfortunately. The great thing is that we have Department of Licensing Services representatives here We have the PSC liaison for the island here. So that's a wonderful show from key people who need to be involved. I disagree with what Ben said, that we haven't had any contact with King County. I've had extensive contact by email with a number of departments, and I've shared that with the board, including King County Roads, who made it very clear to us that it was every pole on the island that was going to be affected. And so it's absolutely clear what's happening. Now, the other point that Ben made in the holding back on asking King County to stop was that this has been going on for some time. The actual regulatory changes have been since 2007. The shift with PSC activity began 2019, which coincided with a franchise agreement. So the franchise agreement is where monies are paid by PSC to King County for the use of the right-of-way or the side of the road. These monies are also paid by our water utilities. You may be familiar with that. Many are aware from a water utilities perspective that they have to pay King County to use the side of the road, the public road. So 2019 was when PSC started its acquisition, easement acquisition program. And so we only actually just found out in 2024 that every pole is affected. So the activity hasn't been going on for years and years, even though the regs have been in place since 2007. What I'm primarily trying to get across here is the urgency to pause so we can get consultation and make decisions as an island about this incredibly important issue, which is going to affect every place there's a pole. And I'd ask everybody to spread the word, get your tape measures out. This is referring to the fog line. The fog line is the edge of the road. So you've got your center line, you've got the edge of the road. It can be hard to see where the edge of the road is, which is why it's called fog line. And you take your tape measure and you go 10 foot and add another 4 lines, so 14 foot, and see if it gets into your private property. In general, it will, I believe. So that's a quick summary. I think the urgency is so great because of these attachments to by, you know, everybody from more highly skilled people in the area of real estate law down to little old ladies who are being told, you're selling us an air easement. So disabled people, people with 2 jobs, these decisions being pushed down onto individuals rather than us making decisions as a community doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. We're here to look after each other.
Okay,
Thank
so that's
you.
all the time we have tonight for this discussion. We don't unfortunately have time to craft a third motion. We've used up all our time. So during this next month, we can craft that third motion and bring that forward next month. But these 2 motions are now on the table, and we'll be voting on them and discussing them more and possibly making an amendment that might be approved to these motions at the next meeting where we vote on them. So that's another possible way to get these motions changed. But we don't have time now. It's been wonderful to hear what you've said, but we've got to move on. And we'll have more time to discuss this at our next meeting. No one said anything about cutting the trees. We have to
Not
move on.
part of the motion. It's not part of the motion that
it
we are
is
currently
actually.
debating.
Okay, so,
And Diane, I'd ask, in previous meetings, we've asked the people gathered if they would be willing to give additional minutes in order to cover that. Could we do that?
you can make a motion to do that.
Yeah, I'd like a motion in order for us to be able to present the third part so that people can have the month to be thinking about all these issues before we vote on them. So I'd like to propose that motion. Is there anyone who would like to second that?
Okay,
Thank you.
so we have a motion on the floor to extend the time. How much time?
I think we can do it in 5 minutes. It's
Okay,
we've already
Let's do
crafted.
10 minutes. I don't think we can do it in 5.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
so the motion has been made and seconded to extend the time of tonight's meeting for an additional 10 minutes. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay. All those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We will talk for another 10 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to propose that we put forward the motion that was agreed to in the committee meeting because it incorporated exactly what Terry described. And I can put that up if you can if I can share the screen, Diane.
Yes. I have to find you here first.
No worries.
Jenny, while you're doing that, I just did post that language in the chat for those on Zoom. That's the language that was, you want to, I think, add into this motion that the board read out, motion number 2.
We
Great.
have a new motion. Those other motions are done. We have 10 more minutes to talk about a third motion. That's what we're working on here.
Okay, so sharing the screen. Here we go. All right. All right, so could everyone see that? Okay, so motion number 2, that shows the additional language. The board's motion is the first part of it. The Vashon-Maury Council calls on King County Department of Local Services to present a community-wide public briefing summarising the King County Roads Clear Zone program. The second part of it is the aspect that Terry Sullivan added. The VMCC asks that King County not require PSC to bring all non-compliant old poles into compliant with the King County Clear Zone program, which PSC is choosing to do through easement acquisition until this issue has been through a thorough public consultation process, allowing Vashon-Maury Islanders the opportunity to express their preferred options to address Vashon's unique needs as an island. So we could split off that second half of it and call it a third motion.
Yes.
I move that. Any seconds for doing that?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to have the second part of this paragraph here as a separate motion.
Great.
Motion number 3. It's been moved and seconded, and we have a little bit of time for discussion. And so if there's any discussion or questions about this part, this third motion. we're
Great.
opening
And if you
it up.
wanted
So
to talk
this is a
about the
motion on
trees, it's a
floor.
good time.
So you should probably, you want to keep showing this?
Yes.
It's hard for me to see
Oh,
who
okay.
has their hands up. So maybe you could, let me see if I can get the participants up
I
here.
can do
Okay, there's the participants, good. So I can see them if they have their hands up now.
Okay. Joanne?
So I think Ben had his hand up first. Did you or not?
Okay, yes. Well, I did have my hand up. I didn't keep track of who was first. Here's my concern with that sentence, as I telegraphed a minute ago. I get that there are folks who are concerned with removal of the trees. A motion like this doesn't save your trees. One, is I think in the short term, there are folks who are looking at trees potentially being removed in the context of an immediate PSE project that is happening starting within the next couple of months. And I just want to, having worked in King County government for a long time, government generally for a long time, even if a month from now, this organization makes a recommendation that King County should pause implementation of a clear zone program, it is not going to stop that PSC project from moving forward. It is too far along. I just want that to be clear as a practical matter. But second, with regard to going forward, we haven't, outside of the context of asking King County officials for answers to certain questions via email, this committee hasn't spoken or heard questions or allowed questions from the public to county officials. We don't really understand the Clear Zone program except for what's been looked at online. And it is a program that has been in place countywide for more than 15 years. It is not particular to Vashon. And again, was a program put in place, debated since the 1980s to be put in place, to allow safer roadsides, etc. I'm not going to go in all of them, but certainly Department of Transportation statewide put out a recommendation in the late 80s that unless the counties adopted a program like this, they would be subject to liability if they didn't consistently enforce this. And in fact, in recent years, the county has been sued, or at least, sorry, I should say PSC has been sued for not adequately clearing spaces to the side of the road. It's not a hypothetical potential for liability, it's a real one. And we don't know anything about it at this point. There are people who are concerned for their trees, but they have made a few logical steps or logical leaps that aren't justified in recommending that the county stop implementation of a long-standing program.
We have about 4 minutes left, so thank you, Ben. So the next person on the for online is going to be Melvin Mackey.
Yes, I just want to clarify one thing, and that is that people who are giving easements to Puget Sound Energy, I mean, they get some money for that one time, if I understand it correctly, but they have to continue paying property tax on that property forever. And if they sell the property, the new owners have to pay property tax on that, and they didn't get anything for it. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Melvin. Okay, back to who is next here. You've spoken already, so I'd like, no, you haven't. Come on, you can talk.
Okay, so there's many issues here, as we can see. And whether or not this program's already been going for so many years or whatever, to me is irrelevant. Because what we're looking at here is that PSC is going forward without the knowledge and the agreement with the property owners. And I went to Jenny's house and I saw the trees that are looking to would be removed, as well as her neighbor's house. And it was unbelievable. The trees are huge, and there's many of them. And her neighbor as well, whose family has lived on that property for generations, I think it doesn't matter that they've done this in the past and it was all okay or what. I mean, it's irrelevant. The fact is, people need to be informed about what's going on. We need PSC to stop, to pause, and understand that they can't just move forward with no agreement, information, or anything from the community members. Also, I'm going to remind people, some years ago along Fauntleroy, when you leave and you go towards Seattle, they removed all these trees along a playground there. You know, there's a chain link fence. And I said, what is this? How did you cut all these trees? They were probably 30 years old. They were large trees and beautiful. Well, a couple branches of one of the trees fell on a car. And someone made the decision they're going to cut all the trees down because of it. Short time later, they ended up planting trees back, but the trees they planted are, I mean, they're awful compared to what was there. So because a branch of a tree falls doesn't mean we cut all the trees or we cut a tree. So, you know, if we value trees, we live here and we pay to live here, and most of us, I think, come here because we love nature. We love the trees. We love the bushes. We love the wildlife. So it's
Joanne.
dangerous to just see that huge amounts of trees could be eliminated in this. It's important.
Okay, so we've used up our 10 minutes now. And so that's what you voted on, and that's what we've done. And we need to keep moving on now. We've had a good discussion about this. Not everybody got to speak, unfortunately, but we'll have time again to talk about this at our next meeting. And we'll vote on these 3 motions at our
Yes.
next meeting.
And to allow people opportunity between now and the next meeting, we have regular meetings of the PSC Advisory Committee, which will allow us to speak at great length. And you can email me and get on the email list. Please tell as many people as possible. My email is jennybell111@protonmail.com, JENNYBELL111@protonmail.com. We have a regular meeting time, first Monday every month, 6 p.m., and there'll be a Zoom link sent out when you send me something by email. So it allows us an expanded time to talk at length about this very important issue for the whole island. Thank you, everyone.
Jenny, could you stop sharing now your screen? Now we have, thank you everyone, this is a very important issue for the island. So now we have unincorporated King County Economic Alliance Program, Angeli Dodge.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I'm going to do my best to share my screen. So give me a second to get set up. I have a little presentation. Oh, let's see. Is there any way that I could have access, or if you wanted to share the presentation, Diane?
I'm going to make you co-host so you can share it.
Oh, how exciting. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Here we go.
Beautiful.
Great. Let me know if you can see my presentation now. Can y'all see it okay?
Yes, we can. We can hear at the Land Trust building.
What was that?
Yes, we can see it. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So like I mentioned before, my name is Angeli Dodge, and I'm the program manager for the Economic Alliance program here with unincorporated King County in local services. And I'm really excited to share with you a little bit more about this program. Diane and I have been chatting for a while now, back and forth, and I'm excited to share with you some great work that's being done across unincorporated areas and then on Vashon Island. So the unincorporated King County, a little bit just kind of about the mission and vision for this program. The mission was really to center equitable and sustainable economic recovery from COVID-19 on our most vulnerable and hardest hit community members across unincorporated areas. And the vision behind that was to co-create those pathways of recovery with those in unincorporated King County who were hit hardest by COVID-19. We're really focusing in and centering folks who we know were disproportionately impacted, such as those in the BIPOC community, LGBTQIA+, women, veterans, immigrants and refugees, those who are formerly incarcerated, unhoused, or have low incomes or disabilities. So folks we know who are really impacted by this hard pandemic that we just went through. Through this program, we've really taken a pro-equity framework. And so this is a quote from the King County Equity and Social Justice Strategic Plan that we're really that we are also challenging business as usual. The journey towards equity is necessarily disruptive. We must question existing systems of power and privilege by undoing the systems that have perpetuated unfair outcomes and created new spaces for learning and growth. So this program, and I did have a history slide here, but this is some of the background of the Economic Alliance. And this program actually came from community. So members from unincorporated King County, specifically Vashon, White Center, and Skyway, came to County Council with over 900 folks from the community, business owners and residents, and said, hey, we have had a huge, hard pandemic that we're going through, and we need a historic investment from local services and from King County to help us recover economically in our unincorporated areas. And County Council agreed with them. They said, yes, we absolutely do need this historic investment. And so they appropriated $5.25 million of COVID recovery funding to local services to form this economic alliance, focusing in on these unincorporated areas. And the goal of this was really to collaborate with these alliance members and contracted partners to provide economic recovery from COVID-19. And then we're going to be doing this. So we started back in 2022. That's when I was hired to start leading this program. And our program is ending in 2024. So it's just that short-term infusion of those economic recovery services. So the workflow and function of this, because it's a large program over a large geographic area, we have unincorporated areas all the way in the Snoqualmie Valley down to Enumclaw, obviously over here on the island. And then we have a lot of residents that are concentrated in our urban unincorporated areas of Skyway, White Center, East Federal Way, and East Renton. So we have our contracted partners that are running programming, and these programs are intended to intentionally and tangibly support residents and businesses in our unincorporated areas. So these three programs, I'm going to go into more detail later, but they're the Career Connector program, the Business Builder, and the Community Innovator. We also have monthly alliance meetings, and this is to coordinate COVID-19 economic recovery across our large unincorporated areas of the county. These alliance members really partner in creating equitable pathways to business ownership and or living wage careers for our most vulnerable residents. So these are mostly community partners, chambers of commerce, economic development professionals, and local business leaders across the county that are really partnering to lead the recovery. This is our partnership structure and implementation plan. So again, we're really working with community-based organizations that are working on the ground to support residents and businesses. We have our local governments and chambers of commerce that are there to help that structural support and system support. And then of course, community members and small business owners are the heart and soul of what we're really trying to serve, is trying to make our community members and small business owners thrive. And we're really looking to listen and learn from community to take that information and make a plan to strategize that recovery across our areas, and then to iterate and revise and help make improvements on whatever we implement. So these are our partners. We're up to 96 partners across unincorporated areas. These are our economic development professionals, chambers of commerce, and business leaders. And we're really excited about this group. We have a really energized group that we've built across these 2 years who do a lot of incredible work across our communities. Our contracted partners who are providing services for those three programs I mentioned in community are White Center Community Development Association, Skyway Coalition, and Comunidad Latina de Vashon. So there's folks from Vashon represented, which is super exciting. COVID's disproportionate impacts. I just wanted to go over a second some of the disproportionate impacts we saw from COVID and how we've been able to focus our services on those who are more impacted in our communities. So we know that young people were actually harder hit during the pandemic. Youth age 16 to 24 remain higher than other age groups to still be dislocated from the workforce. So this graph just shows our young people age 16 to 24 losing their jobs and not re-entering the workforce. And then when you drill into those young people, who are those young people? We know that BIPOC communities were more impacted, and they were the ones who remain disconnected from the workforce. So you can see this graph shows the impact of the labor force by race and ethnicity. So we're really focusing on those BIPOC communities who we know were the first to be dislocated from the workforce, unemployed during the shutdowns and layoffs, and the least likely to have returned post-COVID. This is just some numbers about the business closure rates for businesses. And so we can see Black in Asian communities, as well as Hispanic and Latino communities, lost businesses at an almost 40% rate, versus everyone was at a 20% closure rate. So almost double there. Youth again declining in most major industries after COVID. We see leisure and hospitality being the largest category of decline in entering in back into the workforce and losing jobs after COVID. And then lower income families, of course, as we can imagine, were also more impacted and most likely to be unemployed after COVID-19 when compared to other youth. We also can see this in COVID death rates as well, impacting BIPOC communities in a disproportionate way. So those are some facts and data that we use to guide our programming, and really focusing on using a model that focuses on young people and then focuses on communities that have seen larger impacts. There was a survey that went out for businesses of unincorporated King County that we also used to inform our programming. So in this survey that had around 479 respondents, we asked, how's your recovery going from COVID-19? And at this point, over 60% said that they were not, that they were partially recovered or not recovered at all. So quite a large percentage, that's this red bar here, is partially recovered and 20% as not recovered at all. So we know that around 60% are still really struggling to recover from COVID after the impacts. Also, we know that their top concerns are really operating expenses and staffing. So we know that just the day-to-day expenses of running a business are really a hard hit for most business owners. Also funding business needs and keeping staffing, which we know the impacts of COVID were that folks lost their jobs and are not returning at the same rates as pre-COVID. Some other things that we know is that online research and getting information from fellow business owners comprise about 60% of how people got their information about small businesses, which is great that people are going to the free resource of the internet, but we want to offer some more substantial tools for communities to really thrive in their business ownership. From our survey, we learned that only 8% are going to their Chamber of Commerce and only 9% are going to a local community nonprofit or community neighborhood group. So we want to change those numbers. We also know that funding for marketing and HR are among the top needs. So just getting some funding, which we know is a struggle for sure. So these are the programs that we've created, and this was about a year of community members discussing needs across unincorporated areas, us looking at data, and then designing these programs. So our Career Connector program is really that living wage career and entrepreneurial training, and it's career navigation, which features subsidized employment and job placement. So this was really geared towards underemployed and unemployed residents of unincorporated King County. The Business Builder program is for small business technical assistance, coaching, and mentorship. And like I said, that's our business arm of things, working with those business owners to give them education and tools to run their small businesses. And then our Community Innovator is focused on just the disproportionately impacted areas, so geographic areas of White Center and Skyway. So those are areas that we did research, and we, based on COVID death rates and contraction rates, as well as socioeconomic information, determined that these areas were disproportionately impacted by COVID. And so these business districts are benefiting from the Community Innovator program, which is small business incubation, education, and skills training, really focused and honed in on those business districts and those small urban unincorporated areas. I mentioned our subcommittees and our organizing on a monthly basis. So beyond the programming that's serving participants, our subcommittees are really action-oriented groups that are working similar to this one to really make actionable change in their communities. So we looked at what economic equality really looks like. And from that, we came up with these categories that we based our subcommittees off of. So we hope that in an economically equal society, we have a clean and safe business districts where people can go. We want a healthy and well community. We learned that most with COVID, right? When we lost the health and wellness of our workforce, of our small businesses, we saw our economy really struggle and collapse. And so we want to keep our communities healthy and well to see economic vibrancy. We want our economies to be diverse and accessible. We want everyone to be able to thrive. And we want people who are maybe more disconnected from systems to have access. We want them to be sustainable and future focused, really focusing on climate change and the changing infrastructures that we're experiencing. We want this work that we're doing in economies really to be sustainable. We want it connecting and thriving and interconnected. And so we have these subcommittees: business owner supports, climate change and green jobs. We're connecting and coordinating markets and events across UKC, and then focusing on community wellness post-COVID, as well as community safety. And then we have some place-based steering committees that are really focused on geographic locations. Our Snoqualmie Valley Economic Alliance folks are an example of the place-based groups that are doing some incredible work. This is just some excitement about our 2023 successes. So this was about a year of us serving actual and enrolling participants in our programming. And we're really, again, using this economic empowerment resource as a tool for poverty reduction, violence prevention, and racial equity. So we hosted community markets as one of our big activities of this program. And we do these markets really as low barrier opportunities for micro and small businesses to vend their products for the first time. We also know because of a Surgeon General report that came out that loneliness is an epidemic that we're experiencing. Depression, anxiety are on the rise because of dislocation that happened during COVID. And so these markets and events are something that really bring us together, and we hope help the mental health of communities as well as the economic health. It really also can be a strategy to reduce crime and increase walkability, to really activate previously unactivated or vacant lots. Makes things buzz, it brings positive energy in, and helps reduce crime in some cases. These learning, yeah.
Angela, I'm going to interrupt you. You have 2 minutes left, and I was wondering if you want any time for questions.
I'm going to zoom through it. We hosted about 5,000 folks across unincorporated, 500 plus beneficiaries served, lots of great numbers here. These are some pictures from our markets across White Center and Skyway. And then these are just some great videos of our interns and different fun things. So I won't share those because of time. I'll open it up for questions. Thank you for that time check. I appreciate it. Any questions?
You're
from
welcome,
the group?
Angela. Yes, we do have a question. Joanne has a question.
Awesome.
Hi, yeah. Lots of information, and I'm sure we're all on board with the high ideals that you were expressing. But to me, it would have been much more helpful if you had focused on Vashon. Like, how much money did Vashon get for this 2-year, I think I have what you said, the 2-year project. So I'm on the outside. I don't know anything about this, but I am a retired nurse. Okay, so how much money did we get for the 2 years, and where did it go? Speak to Vashon. I heard nothing about Vashon, really.
Absolutely. So 1/3 of our partners, so Comunidad Vashon is one of our partners, and they are providing services for folks specifically on island. So actually about 1/3 of the programming is very heavily focused in Vashon, which is why it's so exciting for this area. And they are one of the big things that they're doing this year, which they did last year, was the Vashon Mercado. So they're having events in August and September of this year. And they're doing a ton of work with internships with young people. They have about 40.
Who's they?
Comunidad Latina de Vashon
No,
is
when
our
you said
service partner.
you started talking about Vashon and you said they. I'm not sure who you're talking about.
I'm talking about our service partners at Comunidad Vashon.
Who are they on Vashon?
The organization is called Comunidad Latina Vashon. That's the organization's name.
Oh, okay. I went to their event, actually. But,
Yeah, great. How'd you like it?
it was great.
Yeah, I went to their events too, and I just am always thrilled by their markets. Sounds like this year they had an incredible market at the Vashon Theater, or excuse me, last year, and they're planning double markets this year. So they did one last year. It was a huge success. The year before, they actually had to change locations because they overfilled the parking lot and outgrew their space, which is a huge success for their program. All their internships wrap up into the Mercado. So any internship that our young people on Vashon are participating in, they get to showcase their skills at the market that's happening again this summer. So I encourage you all to go out to the markets this summer in August and September.
Angeli, this is
Thank you,
David.
Angeli. Thank you
It
very
was like,
much.
David, so I think the numbers, it was like a little over $1 million went to, yeah, a little over $1 million went to Vashon.
Yes.
Well, went to that organization to do programming. So those 3 buckets that she was talking about, community connectors, the business builders, all 3 of those. So they got funding for all 3 of those type of activities on island.
I'm still unclear about a lot of it.
I can talk to
Okay.
you later. Yeah.
Yes, David can provide some information, and we'll need to move on. Thank you very much, Angeli. Appreciate
thanks,
that. You
everyone.
can stop sharing your screen now.
Oh, goodness.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay, if I can get you to stop sharing. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to adjust things a little bit because Bong and David Daw, I have to catch a ferry. And they're here to have it part of the discussion about the trash cans on the island. So we're going to move that up to now so that they don't have to stay overnight on the island. Okay, and so, yeah, come on up. Join these chairs up here it'll be easier for folks to see you.
I guess it's me. Okay. So I need to use the mic, right?
Yes, you need to use the mic so the folks on Zoom can hear you.
Okay. Hi, Zoom folks. There you go. Okay, so what are we talking about?
Well, hang on a second, let me do this. So Amy, were you going to provide a little background on your results of talking, or we could.
And well, Bong, if you want to set up the thing, and then I can talk about the businesses?
Sure. So you could talk about the history, how it came about that we even have trash cans, very briefly, and then we can talk about.
Okay, as far as I know, this was a request made by the former ED of the chamber, and then it was passed on to
David Vogel
of VMICC.
Yes, of the Community Council.
It was a request, and local services, actually they talked to John Taylor, who was the director at that time, and it was pretty much, we looked into it, and yes, okay, we could do it. And also, we were doing similar projects. I think when David got wind of that we were doing stuff in White Center, putting trash cans, pretty much he asked, what about us? Can we have these things here too? So we incorporated that all into this one program.
And this is a 6-month trial, everybody. This isn't, so we're trialing this, and the trial is up in June. And so now is why we're talking, all the people involved, the people who, the chamber and King County and the community who are using them are getting together and talking about this, and we'll figure out a way to jointly decide if we're going to continue it or not. The funding's going to continue, right?
There is funding, yes. So we
we're
have
not ready for questions yet, I'm sorry.
We have contracted with Uplift Northwest.
Uplift Northwest,
So they're the
okay.
ones who come here twice a week.
Twice a week?
Yes, cleaning up.
That's
the
pretty
trash
frequent.
cans. We drove in today just to check the trash cans. They look pretty clean, so.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so
Amy, you ready to-
in anticipation, I did talk with some business owners, and particularly talked with Sam at Bakery and Creamery, who has 2 cans between her 2 businesses, and the pharmacy, for sure, kind of the most heavily trafficked cans, and talked to them about their experiences. And they were generally positive. There was problems in November, December, because there was a changeover in who was contracted to do the services. And so that was a hiccup, and it was problematic. And I talked at that time, and I talked with them again today, and they said, yep, for the last couple months, it's actually been going really great. They really like the folks from Uplift. They've been getting good service about it. So I got positive feedback from the business owners I talked to, and of course, it's great to have the one down by the chamber with the yard. and his business, and then the wine shop there. The chamber also really enjoys the ability to use them for First Fridays that we do, for Halloween, for Winterfest, for our community events, of course, Strawberry Fest. They're very useful, and we just kind of pitch in and turn those over during Strawberry Festival, and then the county comes in that weekend. And so we thought that Strawberry Festival went well this year with the county cans, and the businesses so far have been pretty good. There was hiccups, and we heard about it in the winter when there was hiccups with the collection, but they've been happy with it for the last few months.
Great. So now we can open it up for a few minutes of questions and answers. Joanne.
Hey, so one of the things we're concerned about on Vashon is plastic, and we want to encourage everybody to use less plastic. When we talk about garbage, everybody on the ferry, I'm sure all of us have seen them empty the plastic bags from the ferries, take them off, and you can have a plastic bag literally that's, I don't know, 4 feet tall, big, and there'll be one little bit of garbage in the corner at the bottom. They empty they throw out the entire big plastic bag. I don't want that to happen here. And I've heard multiple people comment on that when they see it on the ferries. It's extremely wasteful. So I'm just hoping we don't do that, because there's an expense for all those bags, and all that is plastic. We don't need that. So let's find a way not to do that, because I think it's unconscionable that we see that on the ferries every day.
Thanks for that. And I have Stephen Bergman has his hand up. Go ahead, Steve.
Long, thanks very much for this program. We really appreciate it. And I'm glad that the residents of Vashon are now realizing that this is not a household waste disposal service, that hopefully people won't be stuffing their household trash in it. And it's just for, the island visitors and people walking along the street to dispose of their trash. Originally, when the program was initiated, we had talked about the possibility of adding a recycling bin to each one of the trash cans, because a lot of the materials going into these trash cans are recyclable. And it's sad that that stuff is going to the landfill. Has there been any progress in that, adding a recycling bin next to each one of the trash cans?
No, there is not. There's nothing.
How do we go about doing that?
We can have further discussions on this, but as far as I know, we have not even looked in. Well, I believe John Taylor, our director, was here, and he talked to you guys about this, because the question was raised at one point.
Right. I've raised that question over a year and a half ago, and I think we really should consider this, because people hesitate putting their materials in the trash can because it's going to the landfill and not getting recycled properly.
Oh, hey, Steve, thank you so much. And I agree with the trash. And I think a lot of the waste, there is some abuse around household waste, but a lot of the waste is generated on island. Some of it is certainly generated off island and then brought over by car on the ferry. See McDonald's stuff every once in a while. Kind of knowing the difficulty of large-scale recycling in programs like this, where you get so much contamination, right, because of unsupervised recycling going on. I do think it could be really cool to start working with the Vashon businesses, at least uptown, around like what containers are they giving folks, right? And I know a lot of, like Pop is all, very responsible. And I know Jen at IQ, right, there are a lot of businesses that are using much more sustainable materials in what they're giving out. But I think in lieu of sort of an immediate recycling solution and the problems with contamination, I think it would be awesome to kind of start working with our businesses too, to make sure they're giving out the most responsible stuff they can.
Well, right now we do have 2 recycling stations at Ober Park and at the Village Green, with combined trash cans and recycling stations. And as the Parks Department is managing the disposal of that. And as far as I know, people are really doing well with that. Our Vashon residents are very educated in how to recycle properly. And all we have to do is educate our visitors how to do it properly. And I think they'll follow it's an example we can give.
Yeah, maybe we could put up fly guys at the recycling, like some kind of visual, right, to help them stand out visually. But yeah, for sure.
Okay,
Thanks, Amy.
that's been wonderful. Thank you very much, everybody. It sounds like this will probably continue, and if we can figure out a way to get recycling included, that sounds, if people will do it correctly, and I have my own thoughts on that, we would like to do that, and maybe we will at some point. So thank you very much. You guys can now go on.
Thank
Say
you.
anything yet?
Yeah, if you have other comments, please don't hesitate. Ask local services at kingcounty.gov. We staff that website, and you will get a response. Okay? Please do. Tuesdays, I'm there around 10ish until whatever. So, but I'm there on Tuesdays. Okay?
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good travels, safe travels, guys.
Good luck with Ferry.
Yep, good luck.
Thanks, Bong.
Okay, next on the agenda, we are pleased to introduce to you Tammy Dye. Tammy Dye has applied to be on the board, and the board has unanimously approved her, and we need a vote from the membership to endorse the board's decision. So Tammy, would you please give us a little background about yourself?
Hi there. My name is Tammy Dye. I'm a 9-year resident of Vashon. Worked 20 years in big corporations. I worked for AIG. I worked for Liberty Mutual. So I have, across lots of different positions, worked on communication and bringing teams together and working through difficult conversations and trying to get things done. I retired 5 years ago, and now I coach at a health and fitness gym on the island, and I volunteer at Matsuda Farm. And like you, I'm really excited about living here, and I love this place, and I love, my family loves this place, and I want to do everything that I can to support my neighbors. I need the ferry to work. I want access to health care. We need senior housing. There are a lot of really important issues to be discussed here. One of the things that I love about the board, and I've been sort of hanging around for the last couple of months, these are a very hardworking group of people who are trying to consolidate activities of a lot of different groups here. We're a lot stronger together, and this group is doing a great job, I think, of bringing people together and making sure that our voices can be heard to bigger organizations, whether that's PSC or King County. And I would be really excited to be a part of it.
Thank you, Tammy. So I would entertain a motion to have Tammy join our board of directors. Okay, it's very good. It's been moved and seconded to have Tammy join the board. All those in favor, raise your hands, please. Okay, and all those opposed? Welcome to the board, Tammy. We're so glad to have you. If you have any friends, bring them along. Okay, now we'd like to have a little bit of a discussion about the chat function in our community meetings. At our March meeting, we did not have the chat function going on because it was such a controversial issue with the Seattle Indian Health Board, and in the past it had been abused. So we decided not to have a chat at that meeting, and we had an interesting discussion at the board about whether we should have a chat function at all, because the people who are here in the Land Trust building do not participate, cannot participate in the chat, and it is I have always found it to be a distraction, and it pulls me away from whoever is speaking, and I can't do both things at the same time, which is why when I run the meetings, I never look at the chats. But it's the same way when I was just participating, it was really hard for me to both pay attention to the speaker and the meeting and what was going on in the chat. So I'd like to open it up for some discussion. What do you guys think about this? So would you like to speak, please, Joanne, no, you have to use the microphone.
She helped me. I say nix it. Too much information, we don't need it.
So is there anyone on the Zoom call? And how do you, because I want to go back and forth, please. So is there anyone on the Zoom call who would like to comment on the chat? So I'm not, okay, Kevin? Yes, your hand is up. Thank you.
I say
Kevin
retain it.
Fox.
I say retain it. Some of the folks that we're in collaboration with on committees have been able to share information on the chat that's helpful for the work of the committee as we hear what people in the council meeting have to say. So I think it's a very helpful tool.
Okay, good point, but.
Okay, is there anyone else here in the room who would like to comment on it? Otherwise, we'll go back to the Zoom. Oh, yes. Jenny.
I liked the way chat was used today, where there isn't an interruption to the flow of the meeting because Kevin, for example, highlighted that he'd put something into the chat so people could look at it, but you don't have to look at it. So I guess that's the thing that needs clarifying, that running of the meeting doesn't necessarily mean that chat is being looked at.
We don't see it here.
Yeah, and have that as the foundation so that people don't expect, unless it's brought up verbally in the meeting, to have a look at something in particular.
I guess I don't understand. So are you saying that it's
retain
as long as we're not talking about the chat in the meeting, that people who want to use the chat, they just go ahead and use it in Zoom, and it doesn't impact the meeting much. It'll impact the people who are on Zoom for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so that's
but you can shut it down. I when I was watching on Zoom, then I shut it down because it's distracting.
You don't have to look at it.
No, you can close it.
You can close
and
Zoom.
then it can be brought into the meeting in a formal way, in the same way that Kevin did tonight. So it's kind of just an acknowledgement. It's almost like we acknowledge that it exists, but we want people to know that we don't have to incorporate it into the meeting unless it's verbally brought in. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, so Steve, what would you like to say about it?
I vote for retaining the chat because I think it's a great way to share information, to provide links, and it's part of the documentation for the meeting that is really difficult to really capture normally, and for those on Zoom. And so I vote for keeping it, and you can always close and minimize it so you don't have to look at it.
Okay, anyone here that hasn't spoken yet?
I have a question.
Yes.
I just don't know this. So if something is put in the chat, does it stay there when you go look at the meeting later on? Because we're recording the meeting. Is the chat there?
The chat only stays when the meeting recording is on Zoom. When we move the meeting recording over to YouTube, which we have to do because we can't leave them on Zoom, it disappears.
Yeah, that's just the piece I struggle with, is I think people do put a lot of information into the chat as a way of memorializing it. But to my knowledge, it doesn't really stay there because the record of the meeting doesn't actually capture it, is but I could be wrong about that. Maybe there's a way to do it, but I think what you're saying is it doesn't, because it moves to YouTube and it doesn't stick there.
That's right. In order for the information on the chat to be part of the record of the meeting, it has to be taken out of the chat individual information, and put into the minutes of the meeting then.
And that should happen, Diane, because it's a part of the meeting, and it's easily downloadable.
Well, it isn't actually, because the people who are here in the land trust do not get to see it. It's not part of their meeting.
Unless they have a computer and they're looking at a computer.
And they can't do that because we don't have the bandwidth to do that.
The Wi-Fi is not great
The
here.
Wi-Fi is not. So it actually isn't available to the people here.
Okay.
But it sounds like it is of utility in the moment for people who are here online. It's just the people here in the room can't see it, and it won't be memorialized in any.
Well, it makes me feel like I'm
No,
missing.
I'm sorry, terribly sorry. We have all these other people who want to speak who haven't spoken yet.
Yeah, it's supposed to go back and forth between them and us.
Well, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I liked Melvin. What would you have to say?
Yeah, I think we should keep it. one of the things that's very useful for, if people want to talk to other people, they sometimes will put their email into the chat. And that way, it's a really easy way to get somebody's email. So if you're interested in helping them with something. So I'm for
Okay. All right, so very good. We're not actually taking a vote on this. We just wanted to have a discussion about it.
I'd like to say something.
And we have to move on. What?
That's not right.
Well, you gotten to speak a lot, Joanne.
Well, I have something important to say. I never knew that this was going on in the chat. I think Kevin made a good point. So now I'm thinking I need to not come in person to the meeting. I need to do it at home so I can see all this other information that I'm missing. So that's my comment.
Okay. And that's unfortunate because that's one of the reasons I want the chat to go away, so it encourages people to come in person.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, that's the point.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes. We'll probably keep continuing the chats. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to have a vote on the resolution supporting Islanders for Ferry Action. This was brought up at the last meeting, and tonight we're going to vote on it. And here's the resolution in its current form. Vashon Island residents have been burdened by a ferry transportation crisis that seriously affects our livelihoods, health access, and local small businesses. Whereas the Vashon Island Chamber of Commerce launched the Islanders for Ferry Action, IFA, initiative in 2023 to address the growing Washington State ferries crisis through an advocacy campaign of educational outreach to state and county decision makers. Whereas IFA has rallied Islanders to inventory the effects of the crisis on our community and develop over 50 potential solutions that could help alleviate the crisis, published in the November 2023 Community Report, An Island in Crisis Focused on Solutions. Whereas the Vashon-Maury Community Council is a vital community organization advancing community voice, empowerment, and action, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors and the Vashon-Maury Community Council joins the Islanders for Ferry Action campaign as a community partner in support of IFA's valuable work. This resolution in no way commits the council to a specific action or binds the organization financially in any way, but it is a pledge to support the mission and the goals of IFA to be expressed in manners suitable to the Vashon-Maury Community Council. That's the motion. It's been moved and seconded, and now we can open it up for discussion before we have a vote on it. Any comments or questions? Oh, this will be fast.
Everyone likes what Amy and her crew are doing, I think.
Just for the folks online, you may get the chat, but you didn't get a cool button that says "Fix Our Ferries." Just so you know,
This is why you have to come in
Amy.
person.
You got to come. I'm going to have "Fix Our Ferries" buttons for you.
Okay, it's time for a vote then, since no one wants to make additional comments. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that's great. All those opposed? The motion has carried. Thank you very much. It's very wonderful that we are going to be supporting IFA, and we have our buttons to prove it. Okay. Now we can move on to the Vashon Town Planning Committee resolution. And David Vogel, as chair of the Vashon Town Planning Committee, would you please like to take it over?
Thank you. The Vashon Town Plan Committee has met a few times, and we, at our last meeting, made a resolution unanimously to make alterations to the, the county comprehensive plan updates as they affect the town of Vashon. Now, the executive had recommended that bonus density be limited to only 100% affordable housing. And in so doing, what they were effectively doing was preventing any entities other than Vashon Household from building affordable housing in the town. And we would like to see affordable housing in the town of Vashon where it's best suited to the needs of the island, where people could walk to work, where the water and sewer could be available. So we decided that instead of having it only 100% affordable housing for a density bonus, that we would recommend that it be similar to the other rural town density bonus plans that the county has. Now, I believe you have in your agenda the resolution. Would you like me to share my screen so that people could see it?
I think that would be really great, David, if you would. I have given you permission, co-chaired you, so you should be able to share it. If you
Okay.
can't, let me know and I'll roast it up
Let's see
and share it.
then. Okay.
Very good, we can see it.
Okay. And so we made the motion March 21st so that it could be voted here. The motion is the Vashon Town Plan Committee recommends that the current executive proposal, which gives density bonuses in Vashon Town exclusively to affordable housing, be changed as below. And this is how it would go into the ordinance. New section 23. This ordinance, a new section, new or substantially improved residential or mixed-use developments shall provide affordable dwelling units and may exceed the base density allowed in the zoning classification in accordance with the standards listed below. Now, in the other rural towns, they asked that they said they would only give density bonuses for developments with 9 or more units. So we did not want to be limited to developments with 9 or more units. We want developments to be smaller than that, given the size of the town. So that's one change we have over here. Another change would be for owner-occupied dwellings. In the other rural towns, they said if it's 80% of the AMI, which is the average mean income in the area, we thought that it would be better to give density bonuses for 80 to 120%, which would include teachers and people who we want to work on the island that would be considered middle income. And so we modified what the county is using for the other two rural towns to owner occupied would be 80 to 120% of AMI, and then any combination of 80 to 120% AMI for owner and 60%, which is fairly low income AMI for rentals. And then they would get density bonuses. So those were the changes for the density bonuses that the Town Plan Committee thought would be helpful in encouraging more affordable housing in the town of Vashon. And in the past 20 years, there has been no affordable housing really built in the town of Vashon. The other aspect that we wanted to change was the executive committee the county executive had recommended that the height restriction be 35 feet in the town of Vashon. Now, speaking to builders and developers, 35 feet, I think it was intended to be 3 stories, but it makes it very difficult to build 3 stories. And the reason for wanting to allow 3 stories in the town would be to allow mixed uses where you could have a retail store on the first floor and then 2 floors of housing above it. That is a much more effective way of building housing. It really reduces the cost by building up instead of by building out. And for those who are concerned that this might bring in a building spurt like in West Seattle, the Fauntleroy Way, those buildings are generally 4 and 5 stories high, and they're not 3-story buildings. So it's quite different. So there still are the restrictions imposed on any developments by water availability and by sewer hookups, but this would make it a little bit easier to provide affordable housing in the town of Vashon where it is badly needed. Okay, so that's the resolution.
Thank you very much, David. Now we'll open this up. This motion has been moved and seconded, and we're going to vote on this tonight. And so it's open for discussion now. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, Ben?
I had a quick question. David, I know Councilmember Mosqueda was recently on the island, a chunk of the council was, and I know Diane and I were there. I think I saw you there. Councilmember Mosqueda had talked about, or had signaled that she agreed with some of these core recommendations. And I think her assistant said something about following up. Have you had any follow-up conversations with Councilmember Mosqueda? I know that I have not. But
well, I talked to her after, oh, sorry. I did talk to her after the meeting. I think she appreciated the fact that we wanted this to be easy to use for the county. And that's why we used the county's own table and just modified the table that was already being used for 2 other rural towns. They can understand 3 stories as opposed to 35 feet. And they were very receptive, but I limited my advocacy for this proposal because the community council had not yet voted on it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and so I need to take a look and see. Here we go. So any other folks on Zoom or here in the Land Trust want to ask a question or comment on this? Okay, Melvin.
Yeah, could you please scroll back up so we can see the whole chart? Thank you.
So the only changes we're making to the county chart that is being used for the 2 other rural towns is to delete the requirement that developments be 9 or more, or be more than 9 units, and to change the owner occupied AMI from 80% to 80 to 120% here and here.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, Melvin, did you have anything else that you wanted to say about that, or?
No, I just wanted to look at it. Thanks.
Okay, very good. Well, I'd say we should go ahead and vote on this. All those in favor of this proposal and sending this on to King County from the Vashon Community Council, raise your hand, please. And here we go. And all those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So we will send this on to King County, the comprehensive plan folks, as our input from the community council. Not the whole community, but the community council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And you can stop sharing your screen now, David.
Okay.
Okay. Now we have Kevin. Kevin, would you please give us an update on the 2024 legislative results?
can share my screen. You'd allow that?
Yes, I have to do something first.
Okay. So what we had is 4 motions that were passed at earlier in the, actually it was late last year, regarding environmental and climate outcomes that the community wanted to see. And what I'll do is very quickly go through those. Hopefully you can now see my slides.
Yes, we can.
You can't? Great. All right. Motion number 1 it was regarding Lower Snake River Dam removal in discussions with Save Our Wild Salmon. They say the legislature has fully supported this motion this year. So there's some analysis to how to move forward on Snake River Dam removals. And so far, of course, Save Our Wild Salmon is very involved in that activity that was now been funded. If we go to, let me go to my next slide. These are 4 different goals to address the climate crisis. You can see on the left, I've shown which goals were achieved and which goals have failed. And so we're 2 for 2. Supporting community solar projects. That goal was achieved in at least partially because the Puget Sound Energy is now going to continue to provide money back to those who have projects on the rooftop solar projects. However, the community solar part of that activity did not move forward. So we'll be back again next year. Energy labeling of existing residential buildings did not move forward. The ability to protect the Climate Commitment Act was achieved. This Climate Commitment Act was not weakened in this legislative session. However, there will be a ballot initiative that would eliminate it. If you want to stop by Earth Day, you can learn a little bit more about that risk and how we can protect that act. And then protecting Washington State consumers from basically from our utilities using our money that we pay them for energy, using that money for political activities. That piece of legislation did not move forward. 2 items that Zero Waste Vashon has come forward with are going to be up again next year, neither passed this time around. One is to make sure that producers are financially responsible for the life cycle of their packaging and to help increase recycling. And I assume Steve Bergman is, yes, I see you're still here, Steve. So we're going to go back at that again. And then also consumers having a right to fix their own devices by manufacturers making parts and tools and information available to like put a new battery in your iPhone. That did not pass either. The last slide here is a number of items proposed by Solutionary Rail to enhance rail transportation. The concern here is that they made little to no progress in this legislative session on these items as well. So we do have a mixed bag. What I will say is that if you are concerned that no progress is being made, please stop by at Earth Day. We'll show you a history from 2015 to present about the legislation that has passed in support of the environment and the climate. I think you'll be very pleasantly encouraged by the successes we have had. And if you'd like to help raise your voice about how to advocate for these types of legislative successes, you can also stop by at Earth Day and we'll help you understand how you can do that to give us better success next time. I'm happy to answer any questions people might have, Diane.
Okay, any questions here from the folks at the Land Trust? And any questions from the, whoops, hang on a second.
You see Steve has his hand up on Zoom
Yeah,
here.
Steve, go ahead, Steve.
So thanks very much for that, Kevin. When you say Earth Day, I assume you're talking about Dig Deep's celebration of Earth Day on Saturday.
Yes, and I just, so yeah, thanks Diane for mentioning that. On Saturday from 12:30 to 6 about-ish, you'll be able to come and talk to folks about that particular legislative goals and how we can advocate for more. So thanks, Steve, for clarifying. Yeah, this Saturday, April 20th.
So yes, it was a bit disappointing, but it was a very short session this year. And better luck next year, huh?
We keep at it, if at first you do not succeed.
Okay, thank you very much for this effort, Kevin, and helping to make sure that our environmental organizations on this island get a bigger voice in the legislature. Okay, next, and I'm gonna. Next, we have community updates. And our first community update is Omar Malik of Camp Sealth.
Thank you very much. My name is Omar, pronouns he, him. A little bit about me. I just moved to Vashon 9 weeks ago with my daughter and my wife and my 18-year-old Chihuahua. I'm the new director of camping at Camp Sealth. One of the things that I've noticed since I've come here is that Camp Sealth doesn't seem to be a thing that people know about, or they do know about it and they think it's this thing that's very far away and kind of something that they don't think that they can go to or know or want to learn about. One of my big pushes is to try and change some of that. Camp Sealth is a beautiful place. We have 400 acres of pristine land. While we're not letting everybody just go onto the property, and that's really just for safety concern of the youth that we have on site, there is a lot of opportunity for people in the community to either rent out our spaces. We're actually creating a specific Vashon Island community pricing structure so that people who are on island have the opportunity to come and visit. We also hold open houses. We have our first one coming up in October. I'll be sure to let Diane know and make sure that everybody has the opportunity to come. And if you ever see me around on the island, please come and stop me, say hi. I really do believe that community-based organizations really do only work with the help of the entire community. And so one of my goals is to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to experience what Camp Sealth has to offer. So keep it short. I know we're over time, but I'm happy to take any questions that people may have.
Yeah.
My daughter goes to Camp Sealth, loves it. She says, she pronounces it Sealth, and everyone I know says Self. Can you give us a definitive pronunciation of the name?
So everybody at work pronounces it Sealth.
Sealth with a hard E at the beginning. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for.
Of course,
putting
and I'm
that
glad
back.
that your daughter is a part of our community. We still have space open in our day camps. So one thing I will say is that if there are people, you have grandkids who are coming here and they need a place to go, we have plenty of space in all of our day camps. They range in price depending upon how many days you're doing. If you're doing a shorter session, obviously it's a little bit cheaper. If you're doing a longer session, it's obviously a little bit more. But they get the same opportunity to do the same kind of activities that they would at an overnight camp. They're just obviously not staying overnight.
The board is very excited because we're going to have our very first board retreat at Camp Sealth.
Yes, thank you, Diane, for starting it off for us.
It's going to be great fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other
Thank you for
questions or
having me.
comments? Yeah, welcome, Omar. And now we have Eve Susskind to talk about something incredibly important for the island, the child care project and survey. And I'm going to make you co-host so that, there you are, so that we can, you can share your screen.
Thanks, Diane. Let's see. Okay. One moment, please. Okay. Can you see the slide?
We can.
Okay, great. Hey, everybody. I know a lot of you. I'm Eve Susskind. I'm one of two consultants along with Betsy Archambault, working with a team from Vashon Youth and Family Services to conduct a study and a planning process to make childcare more accessible for our community. I don't know if you know this, I didn't know this until I started working on this project, but according to the State Department of Children, Youth and Families, Vashon Island is a childcare desert. So among households for whom staying in the workforce is dependent on reliable childcare, only 8% of the childcare need is met. I find that shocking. It varies by how old the children in the household are, with the greatest need for those families who have infants at home or school-age children, so kind of both ends of the spectrum. So we're all here because we care about the community. We want people to be able to afford housing and childcare because it's right and it's fair for people to have those things, but also because we know that the vibrancy of our entire community, whether or not we have children, whatever our age or economic means, the vibrancy and our having a good life here depends on our ability to house, feed, and care for everyone who makes this a wonderful place to be. And some of you are also parents and have children at home, or you did in the past and struggled with finding childcare because it's been a perennial problem. We talked about housing tonight. And so I just want to point out that the folks who are finding it difficult to afford housing are many of the same people struggling to afford childcare, but many more people of all economic means are struggling to find childcare at all, even if they can afford it. So this chart shows kind of a breakdown of the providers, childcare providers on Vashon. There are many wonderful preschool and enriching part-time childcare programs on the island, but these serve only a fraction of the children who need care on the island. None of them offer infant care. Very few of them offer toddler or elementary age care, and very few of them offer full day or full week care, which is a problem for a lot of working people because they work full-time or would like to work full-time but can't. Because they have to be home with their children. So there's only one program that's free for families who qualify by income, and though a number of the programs offer financial assistance. So this situation is a problem for our community because it limits career, education, and earning opportunities for parents who have to stay home and take care of children. We've been talking with a lot of families and asking, well, how do you do it? Like if most people are not having their childcare needs met, what do they do? Well, the reality is that families are scraping by. They're either foregoing second incomes, scraping by with odd jobs, or sharing the equivalent of one full-time income between two adult household members. One person goes to work, they come home, they switch, the other person takes over childcare. So this Project Childcare, Building Community Solutions, is a 6-month project conducted by Vashon Youth and Family Services. It's funded by the Department of Commerce. The goal is a community-driven action plan to make childcare more accessible for our community in actually now 3 more months. We're about halfway through. So we're finishing up phase 1. Phase 1 was a series of listening sessions, focus groups, interviews, and a survey to understand the priorities, needs, and barriers and challenges to accessing and also to providing childcare on the island. And we've heard in that phase 1, we heard that while we heard what it's like for people to have to really cob together the childcare for their children, and it really impacts people's ability to live their best lives and to contribute to the community in their own right as workers or volunteers. And it also impacts the ability of those who would like to provide childcare, that we learn about why it's so difficult for people who would like to be providers for anything other than the preschool option, which is, there's still not enough preschool, but it is the most robust of what there is. So we've learned a lot, and we're just now beginning phase 2. And phase 2, there's kind of 2 parts of it. The first part is to quantify and locate where the need is, and then also to engage the community to find creative solutions. So if you are a parent or a primary caregiver, you can help us locate the need and quantify it by going to this survey. It's a different survey than you may have taken an earlier survey in phase 1, which was to help us understand the barriers. And this now is to help us find out who needs what care Do you need preschool for age 3 to 5? Do you need daycare for younger children? Are you interested in a co-op? What kind of childcare do you need? Where do you live? Where do you need the childcare? Do you need care for children experiencing special needs? How many days a week do you need it? How many hours a day do you need it? Where do you need it? I think I already said that. So there's two links here. One is in English, one is in Spanish, and you can take a picture of those now, or we are sending the survey out widely to as many through the schools and through childcare providers, and also through Vashon Youth and Family Services. There'll be tabling. You'll see there's a health fair where there'll be tabling for surveying. So that's one thing that's happening. But I also want to speak to y'all, community council folks, because it's really going to take the whole community coming together to solve this problem. And we have to be creative, and we have to think, everyone has to think about what you can do to help solve this problem. So employers need to think about what they can do to create family and childcare friendly workplaces. Businesses need to think about how they can invest in childcare for their workers. The philanthropic community can help raise funds to subsidize solutions. How can we team up to address some of the training and bureaucratic obstacles that potential providers face in, for example, trying to get licensed? It's very bureaucratically difficult. How can the faith community, for example, and others who have space on the island help provide central locations for childcare? Some of the providers would like to offer care, but don't have a place to do it. How can the activist community, you all, and such as the Community Council and others, help advocate for policy change that may be needed to make it easier to provide high quality, affordable childcare for our community? So just wanted you all to know about that, to care about it, to start thinking about what can be done. And if you are a parent or you know a parent, if you could pass on those surveys to them, or to tell them to watch for them. And here's some contact info if you want to reach any of us. Betsy is on vacation right now, so she's not here, but she's your go-to contact, or myself, or Belinda at BYFS.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Eve. We don't have time for questions, unfortunately. We're running a little bit late, but you can certainly contact her if you do have questions, or if you didn't get those written down, you can send an email to me or through the Community Council website, so that we'll get those questions answered.
I think the slides are linked in the agenda, right?
Yes, the slides will be part of the minutes.
Okay,
And the
great.
slides will be, there will be a link then to the minutes forever in the YouTube video of this meeting. So we'll get it. Thank you so much. It was very, very good. And it's a very and critically important, and yeah, a desert, a childcare desert our island is. Thanks again. Okay, and now we have time we extended the meeting, so we do have some minutes for open discussion. And so those of you who've been waiting for your chance to say something, here it is. What's on your mind? What's concerning you? Time to speak up. Anybody? Oh, well, we have some questions, and if someone wants to ask Eve about the childcare thing, she's available. I think people. Okay, grab a mic there, Omar.
So when I moved to the island 9 weeks ago, the first thing we started looking for was childcare, and it was very shocking to me how little there actually was. We have a 2-year-old, and we're in a pretty grateful position that we don't have to scrape by, but even the childcare that we have is, I could see, not being affordable for a lot of people, and it's just not enough. So to be able to sit in this meeting and hear that you all are thinking about this is a pretty big deal. So I just want to say thank you.
It's great to hear your story. I mean, sad to hear your story. I'm glad you found some childcare. But yeah, it was shocking to me. I really had no idea. You see all these childcare providers all over the island. I didn't realize that we had this problem.
Oh, Steve, go ahead.
So I'm going to try to encapsulate what March Twisdale had asked Bong to read during his presentation, but he didn't get a chance to do so. March is very concerned that the community council is not able to represent the entire community of 11,000 residents of Vashon. She understands, and I think we all understand, that it's a participatory organization that requires us to attend meetings. But I think, and I've stated this in the past, I think we need a new mechanism, and I think March does too, that allows the entire community to voice their opinions about decisions that are being advanced for the good of the community. And I don't know how we do that. You know, it's a challenge. Right now, 18 people are listening on Zoom, and there was, what, a half a dozen people there now. And so we are a huge minority. And how can we really represent our 11,000 residents? I think this is a huge issue that we need to reconcile. And March suggests that during your retreat, you might consider this issue and how we can better resolve this problem.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll add that to the agenda. Linda. You're muted, Linda.
I just wanted to talk about the childcare thing. Has it been thought about in terms of bringing people into people's homes to babysit? And of course, they'd have to be vetted, of course, and all that jazz. Has that been one of the ideas?
Yeah, so in this survey, if you happen to be a parent, I mean, anyone can look at the survey if you're, actually, I don't think you can scroll through it unless you're answering it. But one of the questions is, are you interested in like a daycare center, a preschool, or care in someone's home or a care in your own home by a nanny, or care by somebody else in their home? One of the things we need to understand is most people are probably getting childcare right now by if they're not just taking care of their child themselves, it's friends, neighbors, family, informal, informally. So that's already, I think one of the things we need to be careful about is to not continue to place the burden back on, because many of those people who are providing that kind of childcare, informal, they're doing that because they have to take care of their children at home. And so it's one of those ways that people kind of scrape by. They make a little extra money taking care of other people's children. It's maybe not their preferred way. And so it continues to keep placing the burden back on the same people who, without having a systemic solution to that. Oh, but it's one of the ways. I mean, there are many. It's going to have to take many different solutions, not just one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we have time for one more comment or question, if anyone is
I'd like to
ready.
say
Kevin.
something.
Kevin just put his hand up. Kevin?
Yeah, I'd like to respond to Steve's observation. And Steve, you're speaking to the inclusion part of the Equity, Social Justice, and Inclusion Committee. We've been working for a couple of years to outreach to folks on the island. Get in touch, and I know how to reach you, so I'll get in touch with you. And I'd like to be able to get your thoughts. We can maybe share some ideas we've kicked around and see if that might light up some additional thoughts that you might be able to put our heads together, to make additional progress. But our recommendations are now being formulated. We're probably a few months away from being able to bring those up to the board.
Great, thanks.
Okay, March.
Hey there. So I'm a little bit new to this. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I had prepared this earlier to make sure that I would be in like a short window of time and not speak too long. So I'm just going to read it. It won't sound as fluid as some of you have been sounding. This is, I apologize, I was in a business meeting for the first hour of this meeting. So this is in reference to an earlier agenda item related to the trash cans in town. Okie doke. Can I go?
Yes, please.
Oh, right. Okay, cool. As one of nearly 11,000 full-time island residents, I ask that the VMCC address what is a mismatch, not intentional, but a mismatch between our best desires and our ability to fully and adequately represent the interests of such a large and diverse community as Vashon Island. The trash can pilot program is an excellent example of representational overreach, where a small group of well-meaning people have achieved a goal that doesn't necessarily represent the desires of the island. Representational governance requires, first and foremost, that we have an opt-in decision by those to be governed. It doesn't seem like that has been achieved. And so I recommend that the VMCC board at their upcoming in June, I think there's a retreat, that they go ahead and look at this issue of the public image versus reality, basically claiming the power in the eyes of King County. They look to you to represent 11,000 people when clearly that's not achievable under the current situation. I wanted to ask that when Bong, he was going to read this on my behalf because I couldn't make it to the meeting, but he obviously wasn't able to do that. I was going to request that King County Local Services establish sort of a minimum set of conditions that must be met before they take the VMCC's opinion on certain issues that affect everyone on the island as being representative of the entire island. Yes, indeed, we need a voice, and we struggle with this because, of course, the unincorporated and all that other stuff that's going on. But that voice needs to be adequately reflective of wide island views. Otherwise, we run the risk of investing tax dollars in what may be unnecessary or undesirable projects that can also run the risk of missing the mark or being counterproductive. I can ask that you consider at the meeting in June, possibly adding something along these lines to the mission statement or the goals of VMCC, which would be to always find minority and contrary voices before pursuing a goal, to sort of check yourselves, and that it's not enough to be well-meaning. We need to think about unintended consequences.
Okay. Very good. We've got that. It's on record, and
Thank you.
we'll bring this up and discuss this at our board retreat. Okay,
Awesome.
so
Thank
that's all we have time for tonight. Meeting is adjourned. We'll see you next month, everybody. Thank you so much for attending.